Good day, fish tankers. I don't know about you, but the price of aquarium plants seems very high these days to me. It seems to have skyrocketed, and then sometimes the plants don't even grow and they die. That can be a real bummer. I've even heard one of our local fish store owners tell a client, first keep the fish and then worry about the plants. The plants are more difficult, and I kind of agree with him. But how would you like to have a cheap plant that doesn't have a lot of fancy fertilization and CO2 requirements, and once it gets going, it keeps growing and it keeps increasing in number so that you'll have a permanent supply of plants for all your aquariums and even for your friends? Sounds good? That plant is Vallisneria. Want to find out more? Stick around. So here you can see, this is one of my tanks. It's about just under 75 gallons. It's the biggest one, and it completely overgrew with a jungle of Vallisneria. Now, what's the first thing you need to grow these plants? Patience, because it doesn't take off immediately. I had there on the right hand side of a tank behind that big clump of spiderwood. I put in 2 clumps of Vallisneria, almost planted them just like 2 plants there behind the clump. And it took about a month or so that they weren't doing much. And then they suddenly just took off and they spread all over the tank. Now you can see in the middle, it's also overtaken by Vallisneria. And I just have to trim the runners to keep them out of the front where the crypts say. And as you can see, they grow fast and they grow tall. And what do they need beside patience? But patience comes in because they need to reach the nutrition in the bottom of the substrate. The same happened in my tank upstairs, a 29 gallon. There were a few corkscrew Vallisneria that didn't do anything. Then I added just the normal jungle Vallisneria, put in a clump behind the spiderwood there, and suddenly it just took off with runners and it populated the whole back of the tank, and now that tank as well has a jungle of Vallisneria. That brings me to the one point. What do they need? They need nutrition like any plant does, but they're not fussy about it, and they want the nutrition basically in the substrate. So they like these dirted substrates that I have. Root tabs will be fine as well. Must make sure you spread it generously. Aqua soil will work. And even gravel. I'm not a fan of gravel, but even gravel, when there's enough mulm in it and enough detritus in it, the Vallisneria will feed off that as well and just suddenly take off as soon as they hit the right nutritional spot. They also use a bit of water column fertilization, but if you're only going to have a jungle of Vallisneria, that's overkill. You don't need that. You just need some nutrition in the substrate. That's the one thing. And the second thing they need is decent light. It doesn't need high-tech lighting. You can see there on top of a tank there's I think it's 46 watts, Aqua Nice Neo Helios or something. I did a review of that light. It is not a high-tech, high-end light, but it is a decent light. They're not low-light plants, so they need a proper light, but it can be one of the cheaper ranges. It can be just your normal fluorescent tubes if you still use that. If you want to go really cheap, you can use LED floodlights on top of it, but it must have proper lighting to grow. So proper food in the substrate, proper lighting to grow, wait a little bit, and voila. Water parameters, they really are not fussy about it. They'll grow in soft, slightly acidic water. My water's got a bit of hardness in it, so I'm going to say I think they appreciate that, but I've seen them grow in all kinds of water. So water is not crucial, it's about the light and the nutrition. And then they grow like gangbusters. You'll see there, if I can zoom in on the top of a tank, you have that mass of plants running all around the surface. And they just keep growing. They'll grow from one end of a tank all the way to the other end of a tank and curl around on the bottom. How do they propagate though? There you can clearly see it's quite simple. They send out these runners. Sometimes they bounce over the substrate, but there towards the end you can see it hits the substrate again, and they send out these little plantlets that just grow. Now, if you don't want them overgrowing the tank, you just pinch them off. You can throw them on a compost heap, or you can give them to a friend. I used to put them in another tank and just let them grow there. But you have basically, as for the life of your aquarium, as long as everything doesn't go totally out of whack, a supply of free plants. So they are just going to send out runners like that, and they keep on going. Now, as I've shown you, they really tend to grow like gangbusters. They grow all across the surface. And the next question is, can you trim them? Because in this tank, as you can see, they really go across the surface, and you can just let it go like that. But the thing is, if you want other plants as well, they shade off the light. So yes, you can trim them. They don't trim like stem plants do, where you cut them, it branches off into more little branches on that plant. If you cut them, as you can see with some of these browning leaves, they've been cut. That leaf, when you make the cut, tends to die down. But as long as the Vallisneria is healthy, then it will send up new leaves. In a week or so, or a week or two, you will have it growing across the surface again. But what I do is I don't cut all the leaves. You'll see I have a couple of leaves here. I'm not going to cut them all. I'm just going to go, I can hold the camera here and cut. It's a bit tricky. You see there's one, there's another, there's another one, and I'm going to take some of these out. See, here's another one. I'll take off that one. So I'll try and cut half the leaves, and the dying leaves, of course, I'll cut away and I'll remove them. Over here as well, you can see we've got two here. I'm just going to cut them, but I'm not going to cut all of them. I don't want to shock the plant and cause dieback. So as long as they're healthy, you can trim the leaves down. They'll send new leaves up. I like to leave some of the leaves trailing across the surface, but yes, you can cut them in that. Just a quick before and after. Here's the after. I've trimmed a lot of the vallis off the surface now, and you can see there's plants growing underneath, and there's more light on the bottom of our aquarium now than before, to give those other plants a chance to grow also. But you will also see that I've left some of the blades, they're like blades of grass, intact. So I didn't take away everything. And if you do trim them, make sure that they're healthy and they're growing and they're happy. Then they survive the trim and they come back strong. So that's how you trim them. Stay tuned for a bonus tip. Okay guys, on to the bonus tip with Vallisneria. And also this relates to any bladderwort like zoetwatertang, or mosses like your Java moss and your Christmas moss, etc. What we see in front of us here are two liquid carbon products. Flourish Excel is probably your most well-known. There's APT Fix next to it. And I also have seen API Fix and all kinds of liquid carbon products for planted tanks. Now the side use of it, and I've done a video about this, is spot treating algae, putting it in a syringe and then just applying it to the spots where you have blackbeard algae and hair algae. One big warning, do not use these on your Vallisneria, because the cellular structure is similar to the algae, and it will destroy all your Vallisneria that you took the time to grow into a jungle. So if you have Vallisneria in the tank and you have blackbeard algae, better get a Siamese algae eater or remove it manually or cut off the leaves. But for these plants, you can't use liquid carbon to combat algae, unfortunately. Maybe if you just put it in the tank, it might not be such a big deal. I wouldn't risk it. If you have, please let us know in the comment sections what were your results. But if you have Vallisneria or any kind of moss or zoetwatertang for that matter, stay away from these products. Okay guys, that's it from me. If you found this video useful, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe. That'll help me greatly to grow this channel. And until we see each other again, please keep taking good care of those domestic denizens of the deep.